Control the money and control the world has been the mantra since almost the beginning of time. Thousands of years ago, it was the goldsmiths who controlled the money and the creation of the coin. Then it went to governments and kingdoms and so forth. And today, it's the central banks. The central banks have the ability to manipulate the markets as they see fit by basically printing money on demand by pushing that button. They distort markets and ultimately distort our lives. And while their power has continued to grow as they continue to centralize that money creation, they are starting to lose control. The world is starting to push back on centralization and globalization. And while that tide is starting to shift, something big just happened. A catalyst that will be written down in history books hundreds of years from now. In this video, I'm going to break down what just happened, what this means that we need to be paying attention to, how this is the catalyst that's going to propel the future to fruition faster than we might have ever imagined. We're going to talk about what to expect from this and how you and I can get involved in this if we want to continue to see this future come to reality. So let's go. All right, now real quick, if you're new to the channel, my name is Mark Moss, and I make these videos because I want to change the way you think about money, because almost everything that you've learned is wrong. Because if you can learn to see these things differently, think about things differently, then you can have more freedom and more options for your life, for your family, and for your legacy. If you like these topics and want to help me just get them to more people, just take one quick second, click on that like button so the algorithm sends it out to more people, and hit that subscribe button and the bell notification if you're not already subscribed, so you know every time I put a new video. All right, now let's jump in. All right, so today we are talking about this massive catalyst that's causing this huge change. And before we do, we'll just kind of set the stage a little bit. And you know that the world is basically cracking apart. I think this is kind of a perfect image of that. We can see this all over the place. There's signs of it everywhere. So for example, our debt-based monetary system is blowing up. We're at all-time levels of high. We have Japan over 250%. And you can see how this debt kind of spirals out. But even when we get to countries like India, with one of the largest populations in the world, they're at about that 90% debt to GDP ratio, which is kind of that point of no return. So when central banks have two kind of levers at their disposal, one is interest rates and one is debt. Well, interest rates are at zero or negative in most parts of the world. Debt is at all-time highs. And of course, that leads to all types of distortions in the market, one of which is income inequality. So we can see here that while the top 1%'s wealth has been growing, at the same time, the bottom 50% has been going down. And this problem since 1970, of course, when we went off the gold system, has only just continued to get worse and worse. And that leads to populist uprising. We can see that tensions have never been higher. Just since 2017, we've seen over 230 significant anti-government protests, which have erupted worldwide. 110 countries, 78% of authoritarian governments. And so we can see this world is cracking apart. We can see that the world needs change, and it's coming. Change is coming one way or another, whether you like it or not. Now, there's one group of people, these three-letter organizations, the non-government organizations that have a plan for us. Of course, right? You've seen this. We've talked about this. Their goal, you'll own nothing and you'll be happy. We've talked about that. They want to continue to seize power, right? So there's massive change is happening. And some people think that the answer is more centralization, more government control. Some people think it's less government control. And while they definitely want more control, I don't believe that's the answer. I broke down a 3-part video series where I showed which way I think the world breaks, and we use history for that. Editor, go ahead and link to it up here if you want to watch that first part of the video so you can understand this better. But change is coming, all right? But it's not going to be centralized. I believe it's going to be a decentralized solution. Again, like I said, history shows us this. Go back and watch that video for the full understanding of it. But basically, history goes between this pendulum swinging of centralization or manipulation or globalization, and it swings back to freedom, individual rights, decentralization. And so the world just constantly swings back and forth from one extreme to the other. And so we can see that history shows us that right now we're rejecting centralization to go back to a decentralized way. At the same time as the global pendulum is swinging back towards that, We have a brand new technology that, of course, gives us decentralization and on and on. But we're not going to dig too deep into that because I just finished that video series. But this solution that we're moving into is a bottom-up approach. And so it's important to understand this to get to the next part, because while most people are expecting the centralized answer, I'm waiting for the UN or the IMF or the Federal Reserve to tell me what's next. I'm waiting for them to announce what's coming next. Will it be the SDR? Will China be next? I think they're looking in the wrong place. It's not going to be a top-down solution. Instead, it's going to be a decentralized one that happens one by one, from one person to another, from the person to the community, and from the community up. And it works up like this. So let me show you what I'm talking about. All right, so we have a working model. A group that I'm working with down in El Salvador called Bitcoin Beach has started this, and it's a perfect example, perfect template of where this world is going. So down in El Salvador, Central America, one of the, a very poor country down there, without much of an economy, without many jobs. Most people live below the global poverty line. And what they did at Bitcoin Beach is they took one Bitcoin and they put it into the economy. Now, just like a dollar is divided down into 100 cents, a Bitcoin is divided into 100 million sats. So kind of the same thing. So they put this in, they got all the stores and bodegas to start accepting it. They give it to the people, and they started to circulate that in the economy. The economy did so well, Bitcoin Beach did so well, that they ended up hosting the ISA World Surfing Olympic Games. And it's worked so good going from the people to the community that now the government has taken notice. The entire country is now taking notice. You can see here in El Salvador at Bitcoin Beach. And we can see that people are writing that it's a glimpse of what this crypto economy will be. So again, follow me here. It started with the people, going directly to the people, getting the people to use it, and going to the stores. This was not done from a government approach, not a top-down approach. But how's it going now? Well, within a short period of time, it's been less than 2 years, we see that El Salvador has now adopted a brand new law. As a matter of fact, El Salvador has announced that they will make Bitcoin legal tender, a legal currency. They've been moving fast. So now all throughout El Salvador, which is very poor, at all the little shops and bodegas, you can see where you pay here. You can see that they have Bitcoin accepted there. In addition to that, El Salvador wants to jump into the mining space, and they've agreed to use some of their electricity from their volcanoes, which is clean energy that's being underutilized. One of the things about volcanoes is a lot of people don't want to live next to them. So you have this volcano creating lots of energy, but there's not many people there to accept it. So what better way to use that wasted energy that's not being used at all, but instead use it to mine Bitcoin. And things are continuing to blow up. As a matter of fact, in El Salvador now, they have their very own app. And so now all throughout El Salvador, merchants are going to be required to accept Bitcoin, but they're not going to be required to actually hold Bitcoin. So what does that mean? So as they're receiving funds, they could choose to receive them in US dollars, which is the currency they use, or they could choose to receive them in Bitcoin or any portion of. So they have their own app. Things are moving really, really well. And this is a really big deal for El Salvador. A lot of people maybe don't understand all the implications of this, but as we can see that one of the biggest things that happens in the GDP of Central America and small countries like this is from remittances. So we have a whole bunch of people that have gone abroad to live in America, other countries like that, and they're always sending money back to their poor friends, family, relatives, etc. So that's done through remittances. Now, as a matter of fact, there's about $6 billion of remittances that get lost to intermediaries. So Western Union, companies like that, they take a big chunk of it. So now by using Bitcoin, people in America or anywhere else in the world can send that money down to their friends, family, and relatives in El Salvador or any other country without having to pay those heavy fees. All right, this is going to increase the equivalent of billions of dollars every single year. Not only will make it faster, it's going to make it cheaper, which means more money going back to their pockets for millions of people. All right. Now, of course, once El Salvador comes out and says that we're going to recognize the US dollar as a reserve currency, as a legal tender to be used, of course, the central banks don't like that. The central banks don't like anything that's going to cause them to lose control. So, of course, the IMF, which is the central bank above all the central banks, International Monetary Fund, they're speaking out. And it's pretty interesting to see them coming out and talking about El Salvador, because El Salvador is such a small little country. Now we've seen that the IMF's relationship with the El Salvador's relationship turns complicated after the new Bitcoin bill. All right, they don't like that. Now it's pretty interesting. We see that El Salvador is ranked about 106 in the world in global GDP. So it's not a top rate country, depending on what metric you're looking at, 106, 104, 105, but that doesn't matter. You would think that such a small country, maybe the IMF wouldn't even bother, right? But they said that their decision raises several issues that require careful analysis. One of the things that they've said is they don't like the transparency of this, which is pretty rich considering that Bitcoin is an open ledger that has total transparency, where the IMF wants the exact opposite, which is nobody to see what's happening on. But if it's so small, if El Salvador is such a small country, what are they so worried about, right? We can see that it's one of the smallest countries in Central America. And it has very, very bad poverty rate, $5.5 per person per day. That's how it's defined. But if we look a little bit deeper, we can start to see why they're so worried, right? They say that cryptocurrencies are an overall very easy way to avoid taxation and an easy way to simply avoid authorities because it's completely decentralized. So they're telling you right there, they lose their grip to tax and to steal and to manipulate because it's decentralized. It can't be controlled. And so they're losing that grip of power, which is exactly what we want. Bitcoin shifts the power dynamic, right? When a government can come in and take whatever they want from you, they know they can do that at any time. The people also know that their money can be taken at any time, and so they can't plan ahead. But when that power dynamic shifts and a country knows they can't just come in and seize your funds, well, now it changes the incentive structure. Now they have to figure out a way to provide value to you in order to get that money back in exchange. It also shifts the incentive structure for the individual person when they know that they can hold their money in a way that can't be inflated away or seized or stolen. Now they can save and they can plan for the future. So that incentive structure changes, and that's exactly what the IMF is afraid of, losing control because it's completely decentralized. But now that the genie's out of the bag, things are starting to move fast. As a matter of fact, El Salvador came out and announced that they're going to turn it into a legal tender. And right off the bat, lots of other countries want to start following. As a matter of fact, we've seen Paraguay, Panama, Argentina, Brazil, Mexico, Tanzania, all jumping on board. We can see that it's spreading like wildfire. We can see that there's a real need for this to happen. As we can see here that in El Salvador, about 70% of the population in El Salvador do not have access to banking. 70% of the people there have no access to the financial system. And how can there be equality if they have no access to the financial system? There can't be. All right. We can see that the same thing is in Africa. You can see the same thing in India or Indonesia. 250 million plus people, 250 million people with 70% that don't have access to bank accounts. And remember, the reason why they don't have access to bank accounts is because they don't have permission. They need a permissionless system that they're able to join. And so that is why in South America, Central America, we're seeing this. Here we go. We have all these countries one by one coming and announcing their support, including now we see Tanzania jumping on board. Now, if this sounds exciting and interesting, then wait till you find out what we have going on at the Decentralized Collective, because we are helping to accelerate this process. Working with Bitcoin Beach down in El Salvador, we're taking it one step further. So we've already got them using the Bitcoin ecosystem, and that's great. But a lot of people don't have phones. They don't have phones to take advantage of that. In addition, there's no jobs, there's no money to be made there. As I said, about half the world lives on less than $5 a day. And so through the Decentralized Collective, we are helping speed up adoption. We're sending down phones, we're giving phones away so they can have a smartphone that has open source internet, open source email, a Bitcoin Lightning wallet, and the ability to earn several dollars an hour from their phone paid out in Bitcoin. We're taking this exact model that we're doing in El Salvador that started with Bitcoin Beach, that went all the way up to the government to overturn it. Now we're already duplicating it in Peru right now, and we have lots of other areas around the world that we're starting to do this. And we're basically being able to ship what I'm calling an economy in a box. So, you need power, you need solar, you need water, You need 300 jobs, no problem. Boom, we can ship a package anywhere in the world. This is all done through a nonprofit. And once we give them the jobs and the monetary system and the phones, then we can start to work on their education by putting education right on the phones, entrepreneurship, things like that. Once they have proven track record of working on their phones on a regular basis, they've taken education classes to build into their own self, then they can start to build business. There's micro loans and stuff like that. I'm not going to go super deep into this, but it's a nonprofit that we are scaling up very, very quickly. If you want to know more, go to decentralizedcollective.com. There's a forum that you can just put your email in if you want to keep up with what we're doing and you want to help push this agenda. The future is bright. It's happening really quick. The model of how this works from a decentralized fashion is happening right before our very eyes. The future is bright. Let me know what you think. Leave me a comment down below. Of course, as always, give me a thumbs up on this video if you like it. And if you don't like the video, I guess give me a thumbs down. But either way, tell me why in the comments down below. All right, that's what I got for you today. To your success, I'm out.